Yeah, that's where I get my name from, man. I basically grew up 2 blocks off of Halsted, so that was the main street. You know what I'm saying? That we kicked it on, did a lot of things on, and also that street runs throughout the whole city. So, I mean, the whole city limits from one end to the other is straight through. So, it's like, man, it's like a common thread that runs through Chicago. And so, me representing the shot like I do, you know, it just seemed apropos. So,
Cool.
that's how the name got it there.
So I was also checking you on YouTube. I know I'm into the music thing that you're doing. I know
Yeah.
it's very up and coming and very well known in the streets of Chicago.
Yeah, man.
But the little known fact was that you're heavily into the education.
No
And
doubt.
what's your position in education here in Chicago?
Man, I got a master's degree in education, and so basically I've taught before in the Chicago public school system. I've been a dean. I'm kind of in a dean position. You know, that was the last position I've held, and so still go back and help inner city schools with their discipline plans, classroom management, try to teach the teachers how to, you know, deal with all the issues of a child that's you know, in an economically depressed, you know what I'm saying, kind of community. So, you know, it's just my expertise. I grew up in Chicago public schools and in a poverty-stricken situation, and so the lack of men, and especially black men in those situations, really moved me. So when I was in college, really trying to pick a major, it was like, you know, law, education, and I've been doing this tug of war for a while, and then I just said, man, let me go help the shorties. And so, but I still want to do law. So after rapping, I want to go to Northwestern Law and get that.
All right. So do me a favor. Tell me what you did not learn about Chicago history in the Chicago public school system.
Nothing, man. I mean, I learned about Chicago history basically sitting at the feet of my grandfather. You know, my grandfather came up from Yazoo City, Mississippi, and you know, part of that big migration. Got into it with a white guy down there when he was in grammar school. 12 years old, they came to his door, told him, you know, if you don't get that boy out of there, we're gonna hang him. And next thing you know, he was on the train to Chicago, and he had like one uncle here, and so he just basically made it in Chicago, made a life for himself, played some semi-pro football with the Chicago Brown Bombers, and became a Chicago policeman, and did real estate and did a lot of things. So you know, he had a real Chicago experience. You know, he came from Mississippi and had those values, but he was there through the whole thing. And so we used to talk about everything from how it was when Chicago was basically totally, the black community was self-sufficient before desegregation, where everybody, you know, basically was flight, you know what I'm saying, the race to the suburbs and the race, you know what I'm saying, to integrate. And so he used to tell me about how black businesses used to be booming in 47th Street and the Regal Theater, and all of the, you know, the greats that came here, the Chicago blues scene, and Chess Records. They just did a movie about that, and it was like, I went there the first day because I saw so many of the stories that my granddad used to tell me about Muddy Waters and how he used to go listen, and, you know, so the story was just of Chicago history has really been embedded in me since I was a shorty. And I just love sitting at his feet and listening, so that's just all I did all the time. So, you know, he used to just tell me, you know, boy, it was a time y'all want to go to Marshall Fields and you want to go to Macy's. It was a time where everything you could get, you got from a black person, you know. And now these neighborhoods ain't nothing because, you know, when desegregation left, it was like all the black people that were doing something left. And so it left the community economically depressed. You know, he kind of thought it was almost conspiracy. And you know, he was a harsh guy, so he didn't pull any punches. He was the kind of guy, you know, the old timer with a 38 on his waist and, you know, owned a couple of buildings and just shot from the hip. And so he was just from the time and from the era where, regardless of your economic status, you might be poor, but your neighbor was a lawyer. and down the street from a doctor and the dentist. And if you needed clothes, you went to the black clothier. If you needed shoes, you went to the black shoemaker. If you needed groceries, you went to the black guy that was selling groceries and produce down the street. And your kids worked for them, and they sold chicken down the street, and they did this down the street. And your kids could, when they were 15, you could have a relationship with the guy at the cleaners, and your son could work from him and learn business and learn all this acumen about being something and actually see the role models in front of you. And so that was what he was about. That's what he really missed. I grew up in an era that was totally different. You know, everything that I bought was from a foreign-born person, somebody that did not look like me. You know, I got a song called Liquor Store, where it's not an attack on Arabs. It's really a call in Chicago and a lot of inner city communities. Everything that's all our liquor stores are owned by, or what we are called corner stores, are owned by, Arab Americans, And so it's a relationship that is almost frictional all the time, because